The fact that you have assholes like Bill Maher also running around and talking about how great Donald Trump is and how nice of a guy he actually was to him is doubly insane. This isn't fear-mongering. This is telling you what is going on. There's so much happening. Larry David wrote an op-ed, My Dinner with Adolf, talking about Bill Maher's dinner with Gadolf. And obviously Bill Maher has some choice words for Larry David. And a lot of people have actually gotten mad at Larry David in the process. Like Fatlo and other Israel defenders have been kind of losing their minds over Larry David because they're like, he is not sufficiently pro-Israel, which I think is really funny because I'm going to be honest with you. There is very little chance that Larry David isn't even like a little bit pro-Israel. Like, I'm going to be honest. This man... I love Larry. I love Larry David. I think he's amazing. I think he is a incredible comedic mind. I've talked about this quite a bit in terms of like who has played a major role in my understanding of the world. But if you think Larry David isn't like pro-Israel to at least a pretty decent degree, come on. He's definitely he's not anti-Israel. He's not an anti-Zionist. But Larold, on the other hand, okay, he is a one brilliant room reader and two gets annoyed easily. Okay, so what that means is he probably hates how annoying the pro-Israeli crowd is. Like, that is my assessment. That's my assessment as someone who is incredibly parasocially invested in Larry David and all of the things that he's done, and has felt kind of disappointed by him donating money to, who was it? Who was the campaign that he donated to? I think it was like Pete Buttigieg or something that like killed me. I was like, come on, Larry, you should know better than that. But yeah, I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, Larold is I would, if I were to parasocially make an assessment on this, like I would most likely categorize him as someone who is, of course, pro-Israel, but like knows better than to just like constantly chirp about it. If you want evidence that Larry David is a self-hating Jew, just watch him commit a hate crime against another Jewish man, then be applauded by Hamas terrorists. Just awful. Yeah, this was the one. All of this happened, by the way, all of this happened because Larry David wrote this article, which is correct, about Bill Maher's going and having a dinner with Donald Trump, who is a fascist. Okay? So Larry David writes this New York Times op-ed, and then Bill Maher loses his mind. If you want to understand the timeline here, Bill Maher, incredibly annoying guy, as you know, one of the arch villains of this broadcast. Doesn't know who I am, doesn't matter. I just despise this person. He is basically everything that I hate about liberalism wrapped up into one annoying, smug, entitled asshole package with a shit ton of alcohol that is like basically on an IV drip on his arm. Now, that douchebag has always been an anti-Trump douchebag. Bill Maher is the type of person, the prototype of annoying, arrogant, entitled douchebag liberal who thinks he's more intelligent than the average dumb hog, but demonstrates the exact same qualities of the average dumb hog and basically believes in almost all of the things that the average dumb hog believes, but still has to be a annoying douchebag about it, where he's like, I don't like trans people, but I intellectualize my for trans people. You don't like trans people because you're stupid and uneducated. I like trans people because I'm educated about the matters. Like that type of guy. And he hated Donald Trump for his entire career, right? Like the first 4 years, he said a bunch of annoying shit about it. People would yell at Bill Maher all the whatever, right? Now, this time around, he went to Papa, okay? He kissed the ring. He went to the White House. He dropped the pretense. He dropped the whole, like, I'm anti-Trump shit. And he basically said, like, yeah, I've been sued by Trump a bunch of times, but honestly, he's actually pretty smart behind the scenes. He was so nice to me. 100 millionaire who also is a bag racist. I wonder why he was so nice to me. And of course, you know, people are annoyed by it. People in Hollywood are annoyed by it. Larry David is one of those people that is annoyed by it. So he wrote this article, Larry David, My Dinner with Adolf at New York Times, which, for the record, is correct. Is a correct assessment to make. Okay? He wrote this article, and Bill Maher got really pissed off at him and did the classic. Again, these guys are all free speech defenders, right? Bill Maher loves free speech, right? Immediately was like, it's actually Holocaust revisionism to compare Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. And you basically are, disrespectful to the 6 million Jews that were slaughtered by Adolf Hitler. That's what he hit. He hit the this is disrespectful to the victims of the Holocaust line so fast in a conversation that he was having with, I forget who he was talking to. I think was it some right-wing guy that he was talking to? Bill Maher, a guy with no personal lineage connection to the Holocaust, from what I understand, is tone policing a literal Holocaust survivor descendant. Yeah, Bill Maher didn't even know he was Jewish until later in his life. Like, he grew up Catholic, dude. He is the most Catholic coded motherfucker there. For the record, just so you know, he's Mr. Religulous. I hate all religion. I'm an atheist, by the way, and I like to smoke weed. Have I told you I like to smoke? Oh, it was him talking to. Yeah, I didn't even know he was Jewish until like a couple years ago. Yeah, he grew up thinking he was Catholic, at least his whole life, and then like found out that he had a Jewish lineage like later. I think, I'm pretty sure. Seriously, I always thought he was Jewish. Bro, he has, first of all, that's anti-Semitic, okay? No, if you look at his energy and his vibes, he has the most annoying bag Christian pompous know-it-all attitude, okay? No. There's a very different vibe to. I literally did not know that he was Jewish until recently, or at least has like Jewish lineage, and I was shocked when I found out. He just has the most waspy attitude. I don't know how to describe it, even though he's not a wasp. He's a Catholic, but like he has the waspiest attitude. That's it. That's like he sounds and behaves exactly like an annoying, entitled, arrogant, northeastern wasp know-it-all who thinks he knows better than you about everything, even though he is a moron. Okay? So pompous. So arrogant. Also, if he was Jewish, he'd be funnier. Okay? Automatically. That's it. That's just the other side of the equation. Like, he's just so unfunny that I think it's disrespectful to American Jews to say Bill Maher is an American Jew. Okay? You can't make that joke. Well, I just did. Okay? Shut up. So, of course, Bill Maher himself has compared Trump's children to Nazis, obviously, because that's, classic, right? Classic. I mean, this was back in 2016. But now he's saying it's disrespectful to the Holocaust victims to compare his situation to his dinner to having dinner with Adolf. Okay, where does anyone have the clip where he talks to Piers Morgan? Do you guys have that clip? I want to pull it up. I want to pull up the Bill Maher clip, like him complaining about the article. Or I guess like we can start off by reading this article. It's only 4 minutes long. Larry David says, imagine my surprise when in the spring of 1939, a letter arrived at my house inviting me to dinner at the old chancellery with the world's most reviled man, Adolf Hitler. I'd been a vocal critic of his on the radio from the beginning, pretty much predicting everything he was going to do on the road to dictatorship. No one I knew encouraged me to go. He's Hitler. He's a monster. But eventually I concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we needed to talk to the other side, even if it has invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity. 2 weeks later, I found myself on the front of the steps of the old chancellery, and I was led into an opulent living room where a few of the Fuhrer's most vocal supporters had gathered. Himmler, Goering, Leni Riefenstahl, and the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII. We talked about some beautiful art on the walls that had been taken from the homes of Jews. But our conversation abruptly ended when we heard loud footsteps coming down the hallway. Everyone stiffened as Hitler entered the room. He was wearing a tan suit with a armband and gave me an enthusiastic greeting that caught me off guard. Frankly, it was a warmer greeting than I normally get from my parents, and it was accompanied by a slap on my back. I found the whole thing quite disarming. I joked that I was surprised to see him in a tan suit because if he wore that out, it would be perceived as unführer-like. That amused him to no end, and I realized I'd never seen him laugh before. Suddenly, he seemed so human. Here I was prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler. But this private Hitler was a completely different animal. And oddly enough, this one seemed more authentic, like this was a real Hitler. The whole thing had my head spinning. You know what's really funny about this? It is verbatim the Bill Maher monologue, and he just changed out the names of the people and the way that Bill Maher reflected on his meeting with Donald Trump with Adolf Hitler and his cadre of freaks. That's it. This entire op-ed is just literally bar for bar what Bill Maher said about meeting Donald Trump.
Let me read that.
Yeah, and he had a convo with Piers Morgan here. We'll take a look at that, of course. Bill Maher talking about his dinner with Trump at 8:30, and then afterwards we'll get to the Larry David piece that he was upset about at 11:30 in that video. But he said he was starving and led us into the dining room where he gestured me to sit next to him. Goering immediately grabbed a slice of pumpernickel, whereupon Hitler turned to me, gave me an eye roll, and then whispered, "Watch. He'll be done with his entire meal before you've taken 2 bites." That one really got me. Goering, with his mouth full, asked what was so funny. Hitler said, "I was just telling him about the time my dog had diarrhea in the Reichstag." Goering remembered. How could he forget? He loved that story, especially the part where Hitler shot the dog before he got back into the car. Then a beaming Hitler said, "Hey, if I could Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals like a certain dog, that certainly got the biggest laugh of the night." And believe me, there were plenty. But it wasn't just a one-way street. With the Fuhrer dominating the conversation, he was quite inquisitive and asked me a lot of questions about myself. I told him I'd just gone through a brutal breakup with my girlfriend because every time I went someplace without her, she was always insistent that I tell her everything I talked about. I can't stand having to remember every detail of every conversation. Hitler said he could relate. He hated that too. What am I, a secretary? He advised me. It was best not to behave anymore. It was best not to have any more contact with her, or else I'd be right back where I started, and eventually I'd have go through the whole thing all over again. I said it must be easy. It must be easy for a dictator to go through a breakup. He said, "You'd be surprised. There are still feelings." There are still feelings. That really resonated with me. We're not that different after all. I thought that if only the world could see this side of him, people might have a completely different opinion. 2 hours later, the dinner was over, and the escorted me to the door. "I am so glad to have met you. I hope I'm no longer the monster you thought I was. I must say, I'm so thankful I came. Although we disagree on many issues, it doesn't mean that we have to hate each other." So he basically just said, he basically just wrote this article. It's a satirical op-ed talking about, comparing Bill Maher's experience normalizing and like defending Donald Trump to Bill Maher doing this for Adolf Hitler, right? And that's an understandable comparison to make. It's one that Bill Maher has made time and time again, and especially in his second term. If you guys remember, if you were in here in the first Trump tenure, I said over and over again that he was a proto-fascist, that he wasn't a full-blown fascist, that he did not have the ideological motivation to implement fascist policies, even though there was a lot of white nativist policies that he implemented. But he wasn't like trying to. He wasn't coherent enough in his worldview where he was trying to implement some sort of like administrative control in the same way, right? And I was right. In the first term, he was a proto-fascist. He had the instincts for it, fine. That's narcissism. That works really well. But this time, it's a little different. Why? Because all of that narcissism and vengeance is allowing him to perfectly align with the interests of the Republican Party in perpetuity that wanted to do unitary executive theory that is now giving Trump, or rather, Trump is a perfect vessel for these sorts of actions. And they have been taking steps to implement this agenda. We are here already, right? We're here. They arrested a judge yesterday. They arrested a judge, claiming that the judge was actually obstructing justice, right? So TMR played this clip today from 2018 at 6:27 of Bill saying the exact same thing to Geraldo. Where is it? At 6:27?
Oh, they're both.
You know Trump is my friend. I've known Trump for 40 years. I don't have to.
knew
I
OJ.
don't have to.
He didn't.
So did Trump.
He didn't.
So did Trump. I interviewed Trump about OJ.
He didn't remain my
trial.
friend when I felt he had a certain moral lapse.
Well, in my family, my wife agrees with you. She doesn't like his policies on so many things that I already listed, so she just can't stand the guy. I'm different. I can separate the man who's always been gracious to me, always been nice to my family. You know, we were on Celebrity Apprentice together every day for 6 weeks. I've known him really through every.
He's running the world now. What does that matter that he was nice to you at Thanksgiving? I'm not trying to be an asshole to you. You're a smart guy. This befuddles me. I looked up to you.
You know, if you don't look up to me because I'm still friends with the President of the United States, then shame on you, not on me.
I don't look up to you because the President of the United States is doing the things that he's doing.
Who liberated the developmentally disabled? I mean, seriously. Who stood shoulder to shoulder with the GIs in all of those places?
Yeah, so he's a hypocrite. We know that already because Bill Maher got access this time around. This is from 7 years ago. Remember, April 6, 2018. Now Bill Maher is doing the Geraldo Rivera take, ironically enough. And it's actually really interesting that he's doing it right now because Trump is even worse than he was the last term. Trump is worse than he was the last time around. This isn't to say that he was fine the last time around. I think the comparisons of Trump being a fascist or comparisons to Adolf Hitler were perfectly apt even back then. But it is hilarious to me. It is hilarious to me that he is now he's now watched this administration become even more competent, okay, as his popularity is cratering due to a multitude of different reasons. And Bill Maher's like, now is my time. Now is my time to shine. I will defend him from the reasonable center. It is insane to me. Do you have the Zaid thread? I want to see the Zaid Jilani thread of Bill Maher calling Trump Hitler over and over again. I think part of the reason why, Bill Maher complained about Larry David's satirical op-ed saying that making jokes invoking Hitler is insulting the Jews. Now, there are a million different instances where the human version of Brian Griffin, Bill Maher, actually that's an insult to Brian Griffin, I'm not going to lie, but Brian Griffin's human version, I guess, but a significantly worse version of Brian Griffin, has made these comparisons, okay? He's made these comparisons and a lot more. And yet here he is crying to Piers Morgan about Larry David making this apt comparison.
People have been in the news that entire time. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Bill Maher. So my first question is, do you like being the story rather than talking about the stories?
Yeah, the fascist was nice to me, therefore he's forgiven. Yeah, it's like when people who are pro-Israel will be like, oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I went to Israel and it was awesome. It's like, yeah, dude, you defend Israel. Like, of course, especially if you're Jewish or Christian, and you're a prominent defender of Israel, if you're Douglas Murray and you're there to do a propaganda tour, yeah, they're not going to, they're not going to treat you poorly. Okay. Yeah. No, it's so dumb. Of course, Trump is nice to you. You're also a very wealthy, rich Hollywood douchebag. Trump loves those guys. Yeah. If you're Jewish, but have never stepped foot in Israel, they will literally give you land. Like, what are we talking about? It's like, dude, it's awesome. I don't understand what you're talking about, dude. I'm up here and they want to give me a free house in the West Bank. What do you mean? It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to you. That's kind of the problem. That's the whole point that we're making here. It's awesome to some and really bad for others. Others who used to be in the house that is now being offered to you for free.
What comes with the territory, I never try to do that. It's a little more going on in the week, but I've been through it enough that, it's like, it's actually flattering that people really think that I have.
Oh, he's been through so much. Dude, he is such a victim, dude. He is such a victim, dude. He is, God, society Society will never live down the shame of harming this beautiful man over and over again. Oh, it's flattering. Everyone's shitting on me for being an annoying little bag and also being one of the most prominent annoying liberals who actively hated on Donald Trump, which was valid to do, by the way, only to turn around and be like, well, he extended an open hand to me, so now I'm actually going to tell you he's fine. He's great. Good dude. Real good guy, actually. Real smart guy behind the scenes. That's what he said. That was what was so crazy. The fact that his take was, well, you know, I thought Trump was an idiot and that's why I hated him, but it turns out he just presents himself as an idiot on television. That makes it worse, man. That makes it worse. That makes the situation worse. That means he's like deliberately. I don't even believe Bill Maher on that, by the way. I do think Trump. Hey, Fiona! Hey! Well, he thinks he's so smart, of course, so he searches similarities to his president. So, look, the point I was making, glazing Bill Maher, I was not glazing Bill Maher. Bill Maher's pivot to Donald Trump. Anyway, my point that I was trying to make was this, okay? Trump being intelligent behind closed doors or being incredibly stupid behind closed doors doesn't matter. Trump's actions and the implementation of his agenda is what matters. The impact of the president's actions is what matters. George W. Bush was a moron. George W. Bush also is one of the worst presidents in American history of all time. A global destabilizer. Did he make those decisions personally? No, Dick Cheney did. We all know that, but it does not matter. The fact that Dick Cheney was the mastermind and the architect behind the war on terror does not change the reality that George W. Bush signed off on it as the president, and therefore he is still culpable. Okay? And what's frustrating about Bill Maher is like he's like, oh well, you know, he made it seem as though the optics were the biggest flaw for Donald Trump, the biggest reason as to why Bill Maher does not like. The biggest reason as to why Bill Maher doesn't like Donald Trump is because he thought he was like an incompetent fool. And he said he was going to continue criticizing him. But it's like, you know, it rings hollow when you say, well, he was nice to me. And I was shocked by how nice to me he was. We know Donald Trump likes Hollywood. Okay, we know that. We know that's a major motivator. And you are the manifestation of liberal Hollywood. Donald Trump has always had deep resentment towards the liberal elite, not because the liberal elite have destroyed the country, but because the liberal elite always refused to entertain Donald Trump as one of them. That was the major point of contention for Donald Trump. That's why he hates the liberal elite so much. No, Fiona. But it doesn't end there. It does not end there, okay? Your hair looks amazing today. Thank you.
Somehow this important, which I plainly don't. It's ridiculous. You know, I mean, I was offered a chance to actually sit down for an extended period of time in a private setting with the one person who has dominated all of our lives, whether you like him or not, for the last 10 years. That's just not deniable. I took it. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't take it. Just can I see the Trump adopterist up close? I'm going to get to see it, and then you know the only thing that bugs me about it is they don't give me proper credit for it. And then I went back to my day job, tearing him a new asshole, and never stopped before the dinner, never stopped after the dinner, and during, because I said lots of things to him that you would think liberals would love that a guy said right to his face. You didn't win the election, and birtherism was vile, and you know what? You know, I said to him, you're scaring people. Why do you want to scare people so much? So like, I haven't changed at all, and the fact that it made so many people hysterical, not most people, by the way. I mean, I've certainly heard from zillions, and yeah, it's mostly very positive. But yeah, there are some people, sometimes surprising people.
From tariffs to market turmoil, things are looking pretty rough out there. Well, our sponsor, American Hartford Gold, has an answer.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Pierce. The second part of the conversation starts at 11:45. Larry David's criticisms of Bill's Trump dinner. We read the article already. We read the satirical New York Times article already. Okay.
You know, look, I don't want to get in too much into that, but I think the minute you play the Hitler card,
That's what I think.
you've lost the argument.
Yes.
Oh, the minute you've played the Hitler card, you've lost the argument. I would never. Are you saying you lost the argument then? How is he that blind? He's falling into the article. He's like, yeah, he's like Hitler, but he's been super popular for the past 10 years. Exactly. Everything I don't like is Adolf Hitler. What is the point? Where do we get to make this comparison? What is the reason for learning about Adolf Hitler? What is the reason for learning about the Holocaust? What is the reason for learning about any genocide whatsoever? Why is there even a international organ of justice that prosecutes such things if you can never make this comparison? This is incredibly stupid. It is an incredibly stupid argument to make. The entire purpose of learning about the Holocaust and learning about Adolf Hitler is so you can make this comparison when that comparison is valid. Okay? For Donald Trump, especially in the second term, what more do you need to see? This is a country that at least had a crumb of liberalism in terms of protecting First Amendment rights, allowing people to have freedom of speech, free association, free expression, free press. And, you know, America certainly hasn't been the best on that throughout its entire history, especially when it comes to prosecuting radical leftists, anarchists, trade unionists, and the like, communists in general. But having said that, like in the last 20, 30 years, there's this notion that America is supposed to still maintain some semblance of defending free speech, right? That's what America is about. There's nothing else that you can point to as far as like the last bastion of liberalism. Free speech and due process. Those are the two good things. It comes down, maybe not even free speech, but like due process especially comes all the way down from like the Magna Carta tradition. Okay, this is like 1,000 fucking years basically of trying to get this thing right. Donald Trump taking that away is the most Hitlerian thing he could do. It's insane that more people are not angry about this all the goddamn time, partially because they are so incredibly invested in managing the unpopularity of the apartheid state doing a live streamed child Holocaust. As I tweeted about last night, I said, actively trying to manage the unfavorability of an apartheid state that's doing a live streamed child Holocaust has collapsed the already limited credibility the West had about defending liberal democratic values. This is what happened in Germany. A pro-Palestine activist was convicted in Berlin for incitement to racial hatred for asking, have we learned nothing from the Holocaust? You have the FBI busting down the doors of pro-Palestinian American activists, American citizens who are pro-Palestinian student activists. FBI's breaking into their houses. You have the State Department revoking people's visas left and right, trying to kickstart a deportation process for them for the crime of writing a student newspaper article about Israel. Not even about America, just Israel. This is the last bastion. This is the last battle for preserving any semblance of liberalism and liberal protections in the West. Okay, once all of this falls apart, it's done. It's over. The whole Western world is entirely fascist. The most indefensible version of fascism and the most indestructible version of fascism is upon us. This is why I say this is a scary time to be alive, because there is no anti-fascist counterbalance here. There's no like allied coalition, and it's here. And of course, people will say, this was happening for quite a while, and I understand that. I am an anti-capitalist in the United States of America. This accelerated post 9/11, but it existed before 9/11 as well. But it scales upwards, okay? It is an unstoppable force unless someone just says, we're done with this. We have to go back. We have to return to the tradition of liberal democracy, at least theoretical liberal democracy. Do you understand? Because Throughout time, we've had the McCarthyist trials, we've had purges, we've had internment camps for the Japanese during World War II. We've had dark moments in recent U.S. history as well, right? That's true. But all of those dark moments have marginally moved the needle in this direction to finally get to a position where someone who has the motivation, and the Trump administration certainly has that motivation, to just completely rewrite this fundamental principle. And once it's rewritten, once that precedent is set, it doesn't matter how you open that door. It can be over Israel, it can be over anti-Semitism, it can be over whatever you want to have that conversation over. But once that precedent is gone, once that legal protection is gone, once due process is gone, it is impossible. It is impossible to return to a system where those values will be preserved without some kind of violent revolution or some kind of military coup. So the fact that people are sleepwalking towards this, the very fact that people are sleepwalking through this entire process, where like, this administration is taking some severe actions against the First Amendment in broad daylight over and over again, and couching this under immigration enforcement, or national security concerns, and the Democrats are not making a bigger fuss out of this is psychotic to me. The fact that you have assholes like Bill Maher also running around and talking about how great Donald Trump is and how nice of a guy he actually was to him is doubly insane. This isn't fear-mongering. This is telling you what is going on. It's not fear-mongering at all. Fear-mongering would be if I was a right-wing person and I was talking about how they're going to black bag us and put us in FEMA facilities for saying that Barack Obama is actually a Muslim agent. That was fear-mongering. This is real. Every single time right-wingers have talked about First Amendment violations because, I don't know, they said the N-word and got banned off Facebook, that was fear-mongering. That's not a real violation of the First Amendment. A real violation of the First Amendment is when the government interferes in free speech, when the government offers penalties for free speech, for exercising your free speech. Fear-mongering is when right-wingers say they're coming after your guns. Fear-mongering is when people say they're coming after Christianity. That's fear-mongering. There is no real threat to any of these things. This is real. This is happening right now. This is just me explaining what is happening at this very moment. So if you feel fear when you understand the things that I'm saying, my warnings, if you heed my warnings and you feel fear, that means you recognize the damage and you recognize the potential long-term impacts, okay? When someone says, they'll throw you in the slammer for saying Merry Christmas, brother, that's fear-mongering. That's not real. You understand? That's not a real thing. That's not happening. You're just making that up. But when you say what is currently taking place, someone got black bagged in the middle of the street by plainclothes ICE officers for the crime, in air quotes, of writing an article that criticized a foreign nation. That's not me fear-mongering. That's what literally took place with Rumeysa Öztürk. That is precisely what happened. She's a Fulbright scholar at Tufts University. And the reason why they put her in a detainment facility was because she wrote an article criticizing a foreign state. And it's on video. It's not like this is speculation. It is straight up on video. Yeah, you can't say we are crying wolf if there is a wolf in front of you, okay, and the wolf is howling, and you see the wolf on tape, on video. Then there is literally a wolf there. You're not just crying wolf. There's a wolf. I'm pointing to the wolf.
And also, I must say, come on, man. Hitler, Nazis, nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person.
Well, it seems like you do need that. It seems like you need that, considering the commentary that you engaged in.
Didn't change that. And the fact that I reported honestly is not a sin either. But, to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million
Yes.
dead Jews. You know, like that should kind of be in its own place in history.
Oh my God. Holocaust exceptionalist Bill Maher talking to a person who is a direct descendant of Holocaust survivors. Shut up, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, here are all the moments where Bill Maher's brought up Hitler.
New rule, the manager at the grocery store has to stop acting like he's some big shit because he's the one who has the key. Admit it, despite appearing frustrated because Janelle on Register 3 pressed the wrong button, you love it. You love it, don't you, Rick? Because, ooh, that gives you a chance to make your big entrance and save the day. Because only you have the precious key. You know, like it's the ring from The Hobbit. You're pathetic, Rick. I can't believe we dated.
Bill Maher, Trump a little Hitler adjacent.
Right.
2022, Bill Maher compared Trudeau to Hitler. Justin Trudeau.
Said, but they take up space. And with that, we have to make a choice in terms of a leader as a country. Do we tolerate these people? It's like, tolerate them. Now you do sound like Hitler.
That was...
And recently...
Same year, he said J.D. Vance and Elisa Stefanik were talking like Nazis. He cracked the joke saying Melania is Mrs. Hitler. 2016, Bill Maher did a segment comparing Trump's speeches to Hitler's. It is an apt comparison to make. And I'm not going to say it's an apt comparison for Justin Trudeau, which is pretty funny because I think Justin Trudeau was talking about like anti-vaxxers. The only people you can compare to the Nazis is Hamas. Only Hamas is comparable to Adolf Hitler.
And, you know, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it. It's just, look, maybe it's not.
I mean, hilarious, once again, because he has done this on numerous occasions. On numerous occasions. God damn, dude. What a loser this guy is. Oh, my God. We can make these assessments on our own. Okay? Served as U.S. ambassador from 2017 to 2021. David Friedman. He posted this, comparing October 7 to the Holocaust. There is an apt comparison between October 7 and the Holocaust. It's just not one that David M. Friedman would ever entertain. And that would be the Warsaw Ghetto Intifada, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That would be an apt comparison. But of course, you know, that would brick his brain probably. So here's an example of a ridiculous comparison, a laughable comparison, which David M. Friedman defends by saying, sometimes I'm just embarrassed and mortified by the ignorance and malice of those who troll me. Seeing the Auschwitz tattoo on the left arm below, some morons think that they've discovered a rebuttal to the indisputable fact that about 1 million Jews were murdered at the Auschwitz death camp. They think it's a 5-digit number means that there can be no more than 100,000 victims. Well, folks, here's some uncomfortable history for you. The numbers were assigned only to those who were placed on work details, which is why most survivors have numbers on their arms. The vast majority of the Jewish victims were sent immediately for what they were told were disinfecting showers. Those showers sprayed deadly gas, causing their asphyxiation, and their lifeless bodies then were shoveled off to the crematoria to be reduced to ash. Sorry, morons, to pour cold water on your brilliant discovery. Here he is responding to Holocaust deniers that are clowning on him, I guess. Okay? The irony, of course, is that this mechanized death and destruction from a far more powerful state apparatus is ironically closer to what Israel has been doing for the past 76 years than the organic, spontaneous militancy that has developed as a consequence of said apartheid and said genocidal settler colonial regime. Good luck. Good luck explaining that to anybody who's like, nah, I'm pro-Israel. Doesn't matter to me.
Completely logically fair, but Hitler has really kind of got to stay in his own place. He is the goat of evil. And we're just going to have to, I think, leave it like that. So, you know, did I think that was appropriate? No, but people have the right to.
Did you know he was going to do it?
Of course not. And people.
So how did you find out?
You know, somebody, my publicist said, this is going on today and you should know it. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, I mean.
Have you had any contact with him since?
No. And that's okay.
I'm the real victim here. I'm the real victim. How dare Larry David compare Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler? How dare he? I'm Mr. Free Speech, but I loved hanging out with the guy that is finally delivering the death blow to free speech as it stands in America. Remember how intellectually and morally bankrupt all of these supposed free speech defenders are. Remember that. These are all free speech defenders, chatters. Remember that. From Bill Maher to Ben Shapiro to Barry Weiss to all of these right-wing commentators that were supposedly for free speech. Every single one of them is an intellectual fraud. Every single one of them has demonstrated their moral depravity. Because right now, Asmongold, another great example, okay? Every single person that has been like, I love free speech, turns out the only reason why they quote-unquote love free speech was to defend people saying hate speech. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else. When the moment came, and in broad daylight, the administration decided to take action against people exercising their First Amendment rights to criticize not even the United States of America, but a foreign nation, calling out the atrocities, and all of these dipshits are quiet or championing it. They're either not saying anything about it on purpose because they know how hypocritical it looks, or they're championing it without even caring about how hypocritical it looks.
Okay, look, my whole reason to go to the White House, I said it right at the beginning of the speech I made about it, was, talking to Kid Rock right here, and we were just like, there's got to be a better way than just hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. I mean, maybe, nothing will come of this, but what I know nothing will come from is pretending to ignore the person who has all the power. Democrats have no power. So to think that your method of running out of the room screaming, I'm not talking to you, maybe my thing has a 1% chance of succeeding. Yours definitely has zero.
Not zero. And the final thing I'd say about the Larry David thing is I read it and I was just like you.
I find it really strange because it's not like he had that conversation and convinced Donald Trump to not do some of the things that he's doing. You have to look at this. You have to look at what took place here. Bill Maher going and visiting Donald Trump and having this back and forth and whatever. And then the aftermath of that back and forth, how he accounted that or recounted that experience, right? In that process, who won? Okay, who got more? Who gained more out of that? If Bill Maher seemingly cared about upholding these liberal values, for example, okay, did he get anything out of that other than having direct access to Donald Trump? No, he didn't get shit out of it. It's not like he was able to convince Donald Trump to stop, deporting people. He didn't get anything. He got a Trump hat, and Trump got a lot out of it. He got a hater, a liberal, a very loud liberal hater of his who only hated him on the optics anyway. He didn't have real smoke for Donald Trump in the way that I do, for example. He got that guy to turn around and say nice things about him. So you got duped by a moron is my point. That's what's so crazy about it. This guy is not the most brilliant guy. You understand? Donald Trump is not the most brilliant guy at all. He's constantly getting duped. He's getting duped by people in his immediate orbit. He's getting duped by China. He has he got duped by Vladimir Putin, famously, where he thought that Vladimir Putin actually cared about him. I guess that's why he said, "Vladimir, stop! Putin, stop!" This happened yesterday, and Bill Maher, in all of his seemingly intellectual superiority complex, in all this time, Bill Maher thought he was intellectually superior to Donald Trump and Trump supporters. And it turns out that dumbass was able to dupe him in the same way that others have duped that dumbass. What happened? How'd this happen?
The moment I saw Hitler.
Yeah, okay. And then the rest of it is just complaining about Adolf, okay? But yeah. So Larry David writes this article. He complains about it, even though he has time and time again made this exact same comparison. And then, of course, all of the Israel defenders have been running around chirping since then, saying Larry David hasn't once said anything about the hostages. Fatlaw's mad. Proper mad at Larry David. Proper mad.
Not Larry.
I'm so mad. I've shorted my pants. I thought I was Fatlaw. Turns out it was Shatlaw. Yeah, I'm using her hate name. I'm pretty sure it started with this TikTok. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, here.
This message is for Larry David, and if you're not Larry David, please keep on scrolling. Larry, the fact that you have not...
This is so funny because this, like she is a Curb Your Enthusiasm character. This is what's her name? This is literally the wife. Come on. Chat. What? Susie. Exactly. This is just a Susie archetype. Okay. Larry, you haven't said a single thing about the hostages, Larry. Don't you know? You have to side with your tribe. These people don't care about you, Larry. You soul. You bald, Larry. You sick.
A word about the atrocities of October 7th. Not a word about the...
This literally is a Curb bit. I'm losing my mind. This is straightforwardly a Curb bit.
Harassment and violence against Jews all over this country. But this is what you choose to speak out on. Bill Maher's meeting with Trump at the White House, because you have such a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome that it makes you absolutely insane. You can't imagine how Bill Maher, a human, would want to have a conversation with another human that he doesn't agree with. That just rocks your world. But slaughter and kidnapping of Jews on October 7th? Yeah, no, you're fine with that. Trump is the same as Hitler. Yeah, totally different behind the scenes, different personality, but just the same. I mean, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is exactly what is wrong with liberal Jews who put politics before existence. Okay? So if you're not Larry David and you watch this, thank you for watching and please share it. But if you are Larry David, I hope you will seriously consider your role in the demise of Jewish civilization.
It's so good. Come on, dude. Look. All I'm going to say is this. Palestinian chicken episode aside, I think Larry David probably is not an anti-Zionist, okay? And I say this as someone who is a firm and committed defender of Larry David, as someone who is a major fan of Larry David, as someone who has talked about how Larry David is incredibly important, like a formative comic in my development, okay? But Larry David also probably is super annoyed. probably is super annoyed with this type of commentary, okay? I feel like the more he has most likely encountered this sort of commentary in his personal life, and I'm being very parasocial when I say this, the less likely it is that he will say anything that is even remotely pro-Israel, because he is a diehard liberal at his heart. This is some of the same exact motivations that I think, maybe not to the same degree, but like it's the Bernie Sanders phenomena. You know what I mean? He says liberal Zionist shit from the main stage where people are like, dude, what are you saying? What do you mean Israel has a right to defend itself? But you never see him take action against the pro-Palestinian side of the conversation, and he doesn't spend any time on that. And as a matter of fact, he highlights the pro-Palestinian side of the conversation. But you know, his own personal contradictions are still obviously there. Okay? It's because Larry David most likely, you know, understands that this is an indefensible position.